Hi, good evening, and thank you for joining us on day 315 at Good Governance Yaya, GGY. We have Chris and I taking charge today because we have three very special guests. We have Nuwan Bopege, Swasthika Arulingam, and Veerasingham, who are not just leaders of the Aragalaya, but also now leading the People's Struggle Alliance, who are contesting in the election, in the general election from the Colombo district, right? All three?
Yeah. Yes.
From the Colombo district. So thank you guys for coming. We're very honored to have you here because we got to know you really as activists during the Aragalaya. I mean, personally, for me, I followed all of you, right? I mean, I think all of us sort of admired the work that you did and all of that. So thank you so much, because we actually have a president now and a party in power. I think largely thanks to the Aragalaya. Although they might not acknowledge the work that you guys did on behalf of the Aragalaya, I think we will acknowledge it as fellow activists. Although I don't think we are quite the activists that you all at a completely different level. So let me quickly go into an introduction provided by Marissa. So Marissa, thank you for the introductions you've given us. Starting with Nuwan Bopege, who is an attorney at law and executive committee member of the People's Struggle Alliance, contesting the general election from the Colombo district. He has fought both on the streets and in the courtroom on behalf of many who have been targeted and repressed by the state and other marginalized communities. So, and then we have Swasthika Arulingam. Actually, this is the third time.
Yes.
You're the first guest who's been here 3 times. I think Chaturanga has been here twice, right? So,
not bad.
Not bad. Swasthika Arulingam is an attorney in law and executive committee member of the People's Struggle Alliance, contesting again from the Colombo district. She's also a union leader and has been a part of multiple struggles on behalf of and with workers and other oppressed communities. So welcome, Swasthika. And we have Velusamy Weerasingham. I said that right?
Yeah, correct.
Veere, affectionately known as Veere, who is a gender expert and activist and an executive committee member of the People's Struggle Alliance. You need to tell us what a gender expert is, okay?
Yeah.
He's contesting in the general election again from the Colombo district. He's a trainer and advocate for gender and sexual reproductive rights. He's committed to challenging the patriarchy and working towards equality in our society. So welcome all three of you. Nuwan, let me start with you. Could you share what led you into law and human rights advocacy, your journey a little bit, and maybe introduce, reintroduce people to who you are and the work you did and what brought you to this point?
In fact, I think my political career started in the year 2003. I joined left-oriented politics. Initially, I joined Socialist Student Union. Subsequently, during my student period also, I actually done a lot of political activities. Then only in the year 2004, I was selected to law college. Then I took oath in the year 2007. So with my political background only, actually, I was compelled to appear in these public interest litigation, fundamental right cases, and against the disappearances. So these left politics only change our mindset and change our behaviors.
Right. So it was a natural progression for you from student sort of activism into this space.
Yes.
Could you kind of remind people of some of the high-profile sort of cases that you have worked on, and some of the work you've done in the courts on behalf of activists and various causes?
Yeah. In our legal system is concerned, the marginalized or vulnerable people, it's very difficult to get the access. So when we joined to the profession, we felt that because people are unable to go to courthouses and get the assistance of lawyers. So at the same time, due to our political career, a lot of public interest litigations, actually we were compelled to appear. So the Chunnakam case is one of the landmark cases in Jaffna Peninsula. There was the power plant, thermal power plant. So they actually openly discharged their wastage to the soil. Then with that, there's aquifers in Jaffna area, the different type of water resources are there. So these water contaminated with grease and oil. Then only they consulted me and we went to court. And it's a landmark case in Sri Lanka after Eppavala case. So Justice Jayawardena gave a very good judgment analyzing the public interest litigation and low cost standby, all these things. And the second case that I could say is the Ramsirasik case. In Sri Lanka, after introduction of the ICCPR Act, the Section 3 of the Act was actually the government, state, the police, they misuse it against the people who are express their ideas freely. So using Section 3, most of the people were remanded because it's very difficult to get bail once charges were framed under Section 3. Right. So Ramsi Rasik, he wrote in Facebook after the East attack, because of this big pressure that especially on Muslims, they have to fight against that using the keyboard and pen, and he used the word jihad. He used it as a ideological jihad.
Right.
Jihad means
jihad the pen.
It's Aragalaya.
Right, exactly.
In that language, Arabic language, it's Aragalaya. So he said ideological jihad. So actually CID took that word, extracted that word, and said that the jihad word has been used for terrorist activity.
Yeah.
So he indicated that we have to go for that kind of terrorist activities, and using ICCPR Act, they framed charges against him. So I went before court on behalf of him, and I explained the court this is the meaning. At the same time, when we carefully go through his previous conduct, previous comments, actually he's a completely, he's a liberal mind. He has a very liberal mindset, and he's not an extremist at all.
Yeah, right.
So sometimes he actually criticizes certain behaviors among the Muslim society as well.
Right.
So that kind of person. So it's highly rational, and the way that he has been treated is very bad. And court also recognized our argument. And thereafter, court directed to grant compensation, at the same time declared that there is a clear-cut fundamental right violation. Apart from that, Lalit Kugan case and several, about Lalit Kugan incident, he was abducted and there's a disappearance in year 2011.
Yes.
Up to now, we don't know whereabouts.
Yeah, in fact, Gotabaya Rajapaksa has said that he'll testify anywhere other than in Jaffna, right? For that particular case.
Yes. Now, soon after that abduction, then the cabinet media spokesman was Kehliya Ramukkal.
Yeah.
So journalists asked about Lalit and Kugan. He said no,
there's
no disappearances.
Yeah.
They were there.
Yeah.
So then we called him as a witness in Jaffna Magistrate Court. He clearly said he got that information from Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Then we summoned him. Just before the election, he went to the Court of Appeal and took a stay order, preventing us from calling him as a witness. Yeah. Now that appeal is pending. On the last occasion, his lawyers informed court now he is willing to give evidence in a courthouse other than Jaffna. So apart from that, So
he's asking why. I think he feels like it'll be prejudicial against him. Right?
He said that still there is a security threat in North. So
security threat. Is that why? But he went and campaigned there.
Yeah, of course, that was even during the president election, he went there.
Yeah.
There is a contradiction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, on our part, actually, we want it's of course a fact-finding inquiry. We want to know what happened to him.
Sure.
So therefore, somehow we want to get his evidence. Apart from that, actually, generally, I am appearing for a lot of public interest litigation, fundamental right cases. So those are one of the few main cases that I appeared.
Right. So you basically appeared on behalf of people who've been trodden on by the law for a political gain, on somebody else's behest, right? So you really.
So last, actually, Ranil Wickramasinghe's era, and before that Swasthika and me, it was a very busy period because of one after another several bills they wanted to pass in the parliament. Most of the bills are basically detrimental to the people.
Right.
The Economic Transformation Bill, Electricity Bill, Online Safety Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act. So it was a very busy period. So we always went before court, because the only way that people could challenge these bills is that 14 days prior to tabling it in the parliament.
Right.
Other than that, in Sri Lanka, there's no post legislature system.
Right.
So therefore, we being lawyers and activists, we always challenge these acts. At the same time, I think there are various other cases, like now they wanted to privatize telecom. So we went before court. They want to privatize Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation. Most are very profitable government institutions. Right. So these kind of various cases actually we appeared last few decades.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Nuwan. So let's move to Swasthika. Pretty much the same thing, Swasthika. I know we've heard from you before, but maybe remind people about your journey and how you got here, and also your sort of move into the labor union space and how you became you're leading.
Yes, one of them.
You're still doing that,
yes.
Right?
That's
right.
still, yeah.
That's still
if I do get elected, things might change.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So I think I started my political, I didn't have any left background, or my family was not connected with any left political parties or so on. So I became a lawyer just to be I would say I wanted to argue cases, I wanted to be a counsel.
Right.
But I didn't have any idea of moving to left politics at that time. But I joined the Legal Aid Commission by chance, and there you start seeing how the law works differently when you have money in one way, and then when you don't have money, the law works completely differently. So we are taught in law college that the law is neutral and objective, and when you go to court, it's the neutrality which counts. But when you actually practice law, you realize when you don't have money, the law works completely differently for you.
It's meant to be an equalizer.
It's meant to be an equalizer, but
it
doesn't work that way. Or rather, it looks at a very rich person and a very poor person as if they're equals when they're actually not equal. And it applies to all aspects of society. In a society which is sexist and patriarchal, it looks at a man as equals to a woman in certain cases where the woman gets impacted or victimized because of the legal structures and systems we have, and so on. So then when you work in the Legal Aid Commission, you come across many of these cases. You start appearing on behalf of workers, on behalf of street vendors, on behalf of people who have been detained by under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, and so on. So then when you start representing those cases, other people who also work in political aspects in these cases and these issues, they become interested in your work, because not many lawyers do this type of work because it's not lucrative. So then you get connected to left activists and left trade unions and political parties and so on. So that's how I moved into the trade union field, where the Commercial and Industrial Workers Union, the committee members, they contacted me and asked, would you like to join a union? And of course, I wanted to work more with workers, so I said yes. And then from there, the Aragalaya came, and then I was into politics. Now I'm standing for election. So that's kind of like my trajectory into electoral politics. I was in politics for I think over a decade, but into electoral politics.
Right. So, Nuwan said you guys worked on certain cases together.
Yes.
What are the I mean, apart from the Aragalaya cases, we know that all you all took a lead when activists were arrested and so on. So did a lot of other lawyers, right? At that time, there's a lot of solidarity. People came. But other than those, like any other high-profile cases that you have been involved in?
So unlike Bopege, I don't have any landmark judgments to state. But I did, as Nuwan Bopege was saying, we did appear for many special determination matters, particularly cases like bills like the anti-terror legislation and the Online Safety Act, the Bureau of Rehabilitation. And the reason why we took up these cases strongly is because we know how these laws work on the ground, because we have worked with people who have been detained under these various laws, and how the state works, how the prison system works, how the police works, and how the intelligence, we know all of that, right? We know firsthand. So then because of that experience we have from the ground, we are able to bring that to court and speak about how these laws are abused by are structures and systems in place, and we should not understand a law in a certain. We should not understand the law as if it's working in a vacuum. It works in a certain social and political context. So for those special determination bills, we did appear and we pushed and so on. The success rates of the orders or the opinions we receive from court, I would say, is mixed. Yeah. I would want court to give really strong observations on these bills, but that is not always the case.
Well, many of them are law now, right?
Yes, apart from the anti-terror legislation, anti-terror bill, the online safety bill became the law, the Bureau of Rehabilitation became law, the electricity bill became the law. So it's the economic transformation bill now is the law. So it's very, it's kind of demotivating and also sometimes because we do go with so much experience and we try to bring that to court and to cases. But we have to, this is one of the mechanisms through which we can challenge the laws. Right. So, but we don't just stop there. We also build struggles on the ground and work together with people to build struggles and so on. So, yes, so that's the kind of practice I've been doing. Of course, I also have been doing FR cases and so on. But to become a landmark lawyer, you have to be Nuwan Bopege. So I'm not.
Right, exactly.
So I'm not.
Which is why he was your presidential
candidate. Yes, that is why he was our presidential candidate.
There you go. So thank you, Swasthika. We'll come back to those laws because now that we have, there's a great expectation from this new government. Let's see how you feel about that, and especially how that will impact some of these laws and things like that. To Veera now.
Yeah.
So what has been your personal and professional journey, Veera, up to this point? And then, your role in the Aragalaya, and then how you came to take a decision to join the party and contest.
Yeah, I'm still, I'm not a party political person.
Yeah.
So basically I came from the rural village from Kandy. So I basically came from the Hill Country community, Indian Tamil.
Right.
But my mother is a tea plucker. But at the home we have faced so many discrimination against Indian Tamil people.
Yeah.
So from young age I felt and I experienced those kind of discrimination. Still we are feeling.
Yeah.
So from my school age I try to fight because my mother always said, those are discriminatory practices at field and housing and government sector. So it made me to fight against discrimination. And fortunately I had a chance to study mixed school like Sinhala and Tamil because my father is government servant. And because of his, he wanted to join, he wanted to study, but because of the Citizenship Act in 1948, my father couldn't follow his school because he's not a citizen of Sri Lanka at that time. Yeah. So he tried to change his name as look like Sinhala and to study
get an education
system.
Yeah.
And but because of the identity of Indian Tamil, he couldn't higher level. At least he got a driver job at government. It was a very challenge.
Yeah.
So the struggle made me, to find, because he very good in Sinhala and he tried to work with Sinhala people because he wanted to be a Sinhala look like,
Right.
Otherwise he can't survive. So that environment made me to work with Sinhala people and living with Sinhala people. So from young age we fight so many issues like Indian Tamil issue. Then I moved to professional work. I was a teacher and a short time principal, and I moved from government sector to NGO sector. Okay. And then the NGO sector we found so many harassment against violence against women. So that made me to deeper work on gender issue. And now I am working both Indian Tamil community rights as well as gender justice. So I am an activist, I am a trainer, I am a consultant for a long time. But when 2022, I am also part of Kovala protest and Timbirigasya and Nugegoda, but that time I met anyone.
Oh, you haven't met them?
Never.
Okay.
So
I knew you before the Aragalaya.
As Aragalaya.
No.
Okay.
So
yeah.
we
you live there?
Yes.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. So individually, and we have friends like Rai and Suchit. We work some other organizations called Rise Up. In 2015, we started to talk about against PTA, against discrimination in Tamil and discrimination in North people and then the Malay. So that made me to work other issues like Kolanawa and the garbage issue. And we are member of the protest and the Mirihana, and that made me more connection with other people. Right. April 9 I was at Goldface. From April 9 till August we worked together.
Right.
Yes.
And I found there are a number of people really wanted to change the country and really wanted to fight against like Nuwan, like Swasthika and other people for system change.
Right.
So I believe the power of the people, power of the people. Then I work as a team. Now the team invite me to contest.
Right.
Because I'm not a political, I'm not a party person.
Well, you are now.
Yes.
No. So that's how you know Anu and CK as well, right? During that time.
we were at a program called Mana to Matale walk, 16 days walk.
Yeah.
Because still people have, called Anukampava, sympathy on Indian Tamil people and say Pau. But it's not Pau, this is systematically from 1943, the government make them Pau. So we try to make other people to aware because we are not, marginalize ourselves. This is systemic marginalization. How to create awareness among Sri Lankan people to treat Indian Tamil or Kandurata Tamil as an equal citizen.
Right. I mean, I think, the parliament would be richer for having all of you there. Quite frankly, right? I mean, we have got so used to the type of representation we have had. I think we're going to see a radically different parliament this time.
Yes, sure.
But it will certainly be richer for having all of you because you have fought the fight and it has been hard-won gains, right? The Aragalaya represented a lot of hard-won gains for a lot of activists that came together in that moment. So it must be very difficult for you to see the Aragalaya being maligned and attacked as something that had been. How does it make you feel when this narrative that it was hijacked and things like that? Because you're all the genuine sort of activists who were part of that.
The political reading regarding the Aragalaya it's a radical mass movement. So multiple organizations, different kind of individuals participated with Aragalaya. The very reason for the eruption of Aragalaya is the economic issue. We all aware about that. So at one stage, at the initial stage of Aragalaya, actually we were also in a difficulty how to bring it to a proper path and how to culminate it with a victory.
Right.
But the later we were able to bring politics inside the Aragalaya. It's not mere party politics. It's I think progressive politics, left-oriented politics. And we started various debates inside the Aragalaya regarding social disparity and as Veera said, discrimination, gender equality, fundamental rights of the people. These dialogues we gradually
brought it sort of to the mainstream.
Yes.
I think the fact that Chanu Nimesha is a contestant as the first transgender.
Yeah.
I think none of this would have been possible if it wasn't
without the Aragalaya.
Right? So
the fact that she became an acceptable candidate,
right.
Because 5 years ago, she would have faced much more discrimination as a trans person, I think.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my own brother who has very little involvement with this, and he was saying, was there an impediment to her becoming a candidate before? There wasn't.
No, there was
I don't think
social
so.
acceptance
No.
was the issue, I think.
There was no impediment.
No, there was no impediment.
There was I'm not an expert on this issue, but there was for some time there was an issue on the NIC where some people wanted to change their gender on the NIC and they were not allowed. So even if they identify themselves as a trans woman, they have to still go as a man in the NIC. So that issue was there, but I think at some point that was removed and they managed to. They fought. They had struggles.
Impediment, just that nobody felt comfortable enough to
step forward.
Yes.
I don't think there was an impact. As far as I mean, I could be wrong.
No, but the moment you put your head above the rest of the crowd, your head is on the chopping block, right?
Yes, yes.
So, the first is always going to be the toughest one.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like this is a moment where people are receptive to change. I think the presidential election was a confirmation of that, right? A 3% party getting 42%. So, is that your calculation that this is the time now for you to enter the political arena in a more organized way, like sort of leave, some of the stuff at the Aragalaya was extrajudicial. Now you have to work within the system. Do you feel like what drove that decision to make it, get into the political process?
I think, at least for me, after July 9th, this is kind of like a moment for me when I was thinking about power in terms of the state, right? So we were doing that satyagraha after Gota left, and we were looking at 225 people, and I don't think any one of us there could look at one person and say, this is the person whom we trust to take over after Gota left. I mean, of course we said no Ranil, and then who else?
Yeah.
None of us could look at 225 people and think, at one point there was a slogan saying, 225 people go home.
Yeah, I think he started that. Actually, he honored
225 plus 1.
Plus one get out. Plus one get out, right? He gave I think one of those voice cuts in Mirihan, wasn't it? And he that went viral. I remember at that time. Before I met him, I had seen that particular clip. He said 225 plus one must get out. That was
No. I'll tell you the background there, because I think it was Faraz from News First.
You were talking about Faraz.
No, he had come. He was covering the Kovola protest.
Okay.
So this is before GGY.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was saying, somehow the question was like, what would you do? Would you if you cannot solve this thing? Would you leave? Would you leave? I mean, this type of power cuts and all those. Sometimes we were protesting at Kovola, there was no power.
Yeah.
So would you leave the country if you cannot? I said no. The people who put us into this mess, the 225 plus one should get out. That was.
Yeah.
Or leave the country. About leaving. Yes, he asked you whether you will leave the country.
That's right.
He said,
so, I mean, why should we leave? They create the problem. They should be the ones.
Yeah. So I think that satyagraha was a moment where I, as a person, I thought, for the last, I would say, 5 years. I mean, when I was more actively getting involved in looking at state. Before that, I was involved in social movements and all that. So I was thinking, when the parliament brings laws, let's say the Counter Terror Act or the ATA or the Online Safety Act, it is we who read the bills. It's we who write reports about it. We who speak to the media about it. We who go and tell the parliamentarians, look, you all are drafting a law which is detrimental to the people of this country. So literally we are doing the homework for the parliament. And then we build all of the struggle. And then we look at them to give us some leadership. There is no voice in parliament to give us a leadership. Or there are very few voices, but there is no organized voice to bring those voices, bring those struggles into parliament. So at that point I was actually thinking of power. At that time we still have not decided to contest. It was in 2022 and so on. Then when they did call for the presidential election, there was a discussion amongst 3 parties and activists like Veere. As to whether we should come together or how we should go about politics, and then we said we should contest. I mean, irrespective of whether we win or lose, we have a narrative to bring in, we have a politics to bring in, we have a position to take, and in a presidential race, you can't stand outside the race and try to engage people politically. So we thought we would contest, and Nuwan, of course, was the best choice for us. So we put him as a candidate, and we contested. So that's how I think we decided to come in terms of the time. I think it was different people had different ideas, but for me I think that was the moment, that satyagraha, where we looked at 225 people and we could not think of one person. I mean, of course, I'm not saying all of them are equally bad or equally corrupt or anything. There were some good parliamentarians who were trying to speak on behalf of the people and all of that. But still, as a unit, we looked at them and I thought, we can't think of one person whom we trust.
Yeah.
And that is problematic.
Right. Okay. So, right now, NPP has let's say they are the predominant party right now. Again, they're left-leaning, maybe centre-left compared to you? I think you're far more to the left of those guys.
We are
right?
left, they are centre, and now we are thinking they're centre-right.
Centre-right. You're moving them to the right a little bit. But there's acceptance of leftist politics right now. I mean, I don't know whether that shift is ideological or whether it's just the societal strife that they've been going through that has made them a viable option. Is that how you're looking at it? Like, how do you differentiate yourself from the MPP? Like, because if you're looking at voter base, those areas overlap, right? Their base overlaps the kind of votes that you want. What is your message to the people who are thinking of voting NPP to vote for you, or anybody really? Anybody can take that.
The elections are a reflection of a democracy. We have to we concede that. Yeah. But election is not the only mode of doing politics. So we have been involved in politics in my life now 20 years, Swasthika more than 10 years, Veerasingham, I think 20 years. Actually, throughout our life we did politics, but it's not mere electoral politics or election-based politics. We are doing politics with the forces. So we are always representing the forces. We are fighting for forces, for common factors and for their rights. So that is our politics. Now, you ask what's the difference between NPP and us. Even now, I don't know whether they admit that they get the advantage of the Aragalaya. Yes. Why they were able to do that? During last 5 years, when you carefully go through their statements, their politics, their main agenda, their main target was the electoral politics. In order to do so, now at the first stage of the Aragalaya, they said, don't believe this Aragalaya, don't go to that, nobody lead that, we don't know who is the leader of that. Then halfway through, when they feel that it's going well, then they entered into the Aragalaya and they did they actually contributed to that. We have to concede that as well. Then after 9th May, there was a collapse of the Aragalaya. Then actually they left the Aragalaya. So these incidents were happening. Why they time to time changed their stance was because in their mind always election will be coming. We have to get the advantage of that. But what is the difference of our movement is we always believe that Aragalaya is the best mode of change in the system. We didn't target an election. What we thought through the Aragalaya, now the biggest opposition was built in the goal phase. Using that, we have to go for an interim arrangement, interim government, and change the constitution, include all the progressive things of that constitution, and go for a referendum, have a system change. That's what we believe until the last moment of the Aragalaya. But NPP, they strategically thought, no, Aragalaya should immediately disperse. Then we have to go immediately for election and get this benefit to their political party. Ultimately, after 2 years down the line, they were able to get that benefit. We believe the people honestly believe they need a change. Previously, now in 2015, people believed after changing a phase, we can achieve good governance. But people were unable to do that. Then after being the victims of that decision, 2019 people believed if you bring an army leader or person who did not in the political arena, then that will be the solution to change the system. Then they brought Gotabaya. Within 2 years it became utter failure. So this time people believe the best choice is to give power to a party which did not rule the country for last 75 years. So that's the people's choice. The Aragalaya contributed that too in order to get that kind of very, radical decision. The Aragalaya only strengthened the backbone of the people to get that decision. So Aragalaya, what the inculcated in the society, nothing impossible. You can do anything.
Yes.
So previously people believe, no, within this same system only we should move here and there. Now, with the Aragalaya, it has changed the people's mindset. Then NPP was able to get that advantage. But as far as our politics is concerned, still we are doing politics with forces. Now even NPP, we know now they are not willing to, it seems they are not willing to abolish the PTA. Then we are working with the forces who victims of the PTA. So we have always struggled. That is our politics. Now they are not ready to now before the election they promised to increases salaries. So we are representing the vulnerable segment of the society who are suffering due to the economic crisis. So we are fighting with that forces to get the benefit out of that. Likewise, whoever in the government, our politics will not be changed because we are doing politics with the forces.
I think the left values became more acceptable after Aragalaya because the left politics is about, as Veere was explaining, about how do we tackle social and economic inequalities. How do we talk about universal healthcare, universal education, and this idea that if a person has a bad day, that person doesn't have to, starve, or if a person does not have money, that person still deserves medical attention, still deserves a house, still deserves to live as a decent, have a decent living. So I think that idea was always there in our society, but Aragalaya gave as Bopege was saying, Aragalaya gave the confidence to people to believe that we can actually achieve this. If we put our resources together, if we come together, we can achieve this. I think that political shift also happened during the Aragalaya.
Right. So we actually in our statement as GGY, we said this is not the moment for incremental change. Incrementalism. Yes. This is the moment for actually like revolutionary sort of change. Do you feel that opportunity is still there? I mean, what do you think? I mean, everything that we've seen so far. Now NPP has been in power for a while. The expectations of the people who elected them, I think, is for something radical. Do you think they're delivering? Do you think that it's possible with these guys?
I need to give some example. The earlier question, different. I feel because the national issues, for a long time. So in our protest struggle, front, we clearly explain what is the power devolution for the national questions.
Yeah.
So this is very clear and practicable solution we are suggesting for national question. That is totally different between NPP and
and it's a very it's probably the most polarizing thing as well. I mean that's where your ethnicity comes into play depending on who's talking about it. I know you have fought for certain cases about war crimes and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean I'm sure. People in the Sinhala community would have come after you. So y'all are people who have actually been at the receiving end of some of the negativity because you fought for causes, like you said, like you're working with the forces, right? Do you feel like you need to moderate that stance to get a bigger share of the vote, for example? Are you going to stick to the ideology to lead you into even a parliamentary election?
We are not willing to compromise our fundamentals for electoral politics. That's the main difference between the NPP and us.
Right.
During the main party within the NPP was JVP. But during the election, they were very, even they did not use the word of socialism left within their campaign because they thought that will be affect their vote base. Even their manifesto is concerned nothing regarding left-oriented reforms. It's a neoliberal reform. So I'm not complaining. But they compromise their principles, their fundamentals for the electoral politics. Even though now we decided to work together and do politics and do electoral politics, we are not willing to compromise that because we believe the only way that we could change a system that simultaneously we have to change the mindset of the people as well. If we are inculcating same neoliberal policies and other policies for the people for the sake of votes, ultimately nothing will be changed. Because now, as he said, if we need a concrete solution for national question, we have to tell that. Whether it might impact our vote base, whether Sinhala Buddhist majoritarian refuse us, that is immaterial. Right. So we have come up with concrete solution. Then our duty, our politics is how to bring it's a popular debate among the people. Yeah. So popularity means now all of us always we like to go with the popular politics, but we are doing politics to popularize things that correct to popularize the correct thing.
Correct.
So that is our politics.
Yeah, I mean the UNHCR after the NP came into power, there was a UNHCR session, wasn't there? And they stood on the same stance.
Yes.
Right? There was no change in the stance from the previous
government.
Previous government.
Yeah. How would that, now, as an example, how would that look different with you?
Who wants to answer it? So,
no, because I know, because it's such a tough question, right? I mean, it'll be good to hear the bold sort of vision, right? Because that would be like the ultimate bold vision, because that is a question that nobody wants to touch, because it's like a hot potato, right?
So, in terms of one of the reason why we have these resolutions and so on in Sri Lanka is the fact that soon after the war, the Tamils did not get, the Tamil minority in this country did not get any kind of justice or accountability for what happened at the end of the war, for war crimes, for disappearances, for people who have been detained and tortured on the PTA, lots of things which happened at the end of the war. To date, we don't have answers to that. So when we came together, one of the things which we stated very openly, both in the south and the north, is that if we want to have reconciliation, if we want to build this united identity as a country, then we need to start from justice and accountability. For war crimes, for disappearances, for torture which happened during the war times, for Easter Sunday atrocities, we have to have accountability for all of that and a process of justice. Now, the resolution is a resolution of, it's an international process where there is a belief, and a very justifiable belief by the Tamil minority, that we will never get justice from inside the country. Our mechanisms are so compromised. For instance, take for example the Lalit and Kugan case. Yeah. We could not summon Gotabaya Rajapaksa to give witness, as a witness in Jaffna. To date, we have been unable to do that. So there is a belief, that a very strong justifiable belief, that our systems will not deliver justice for victims of the war. And that is why people start relying on the international mechanism. But this is not the party position, because we have not discussed in terms of international mechanism or local. But this is my position, is that much as we critique the local structures in terms of accountability and so on, the international mechanism also has not been able to deliver, I would say, anything except push the government into certain mechanisms. To give an example, we have a permanent disappearance office of the disappeared. We have a permanent office right now. And that office, I think it has been more than 5 years in operation.
OMP you're referring to, no?
OMP, yes. Yes. They started working, and then with this government came in, the entire commission changed. And the commission has achieved nothing, like in terms of justice. Yeah. So, what happens with the international process is, the government does not want to listen to anything what these resolutions say, consecutive governments. Now this government, we are hoping it would be different, but they have taken the similar stance. So what they do is, just to evade international pressure, they would do certain things on the ground to tick the box. And the victims do not get anything in terms of justice.
Right. If I may add that, because we had Salia Peiris here, and I think we spoke about this OMP, and he said one way they were trying to curtail them is by reducing the funding.
Yes, that is one way to completely make even if when you have someone who like Sali Piri is heading it, how can he do his roles if you do not allocate the funds? If you do not,
so they hobble it.
Yes,
they hobble it with something like that, and then they're ineffective.
On paper, you have that organization, so you can show it, you can sell it to people,
but underfunded.
So I think if tomorrow, let's say we come to power, one of the things which our government, I think this is not something which we have discussed, so this is my personal opinion, but one of the things we can do, because we have a strong political stance on this, is that we definitely need technical support in terms of investigation, because these are war crimes investigations. We might not have the resources in this country. We definitely need technical support. We need support from certain other countries who have expertise in handling these issues in order to find justice and accountability. But any which way, I think justice and accountability must be delivered from within the country if we want to build a united identity. It can't come from outside. If it comes from outside, that would always be an outside thing. we have to, the justice and accountability has to come from inside. That is the only way to move forward. So we are strong on the justice and accountability factor. Of course, we have to discuss about obtaining technical support and so on. But that is how I think a PSA government would do it differently.
Right. So we need a process of like very strong introspection as a community.
Yes, right? Introspection and this a process of justice. You know, the recognition that war crimes actually happened and hundreds and thousands.
There's no acknowledgement.
There's no acknowledgement.
There's no acknowledgement. I think the mothers. I think certain anniversaries are coming up.
Exactly.
They don't. There's no right to commemorate. Just basic things that we other communities take for granted that is denied one particular community.
Yeah.
So I think I know, tough question to answer. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but but it's important to kind of understand where you guys are coming from. But coming back to the election, say there's a path for all three of you to go into Parliament. We'll take answers from each of you. How would you effect change from inside Parliament? Like, where do you think you can be effective? Say that you target three, maybe two or three seats. You're a minority in a minority then. In Parliament within the opposition. What can you do to effect positive change when you're in there?
First of all, now what was reflected during the Aragalaya as he raised a demand, slogan that the people rejected all 225 members. What was the story behind that? Because of the way that they exercise this representative democracy is not actually people were not benefited out of that. They did not represent the people. So because
we hear that most of these guys don't even read the bill.
Exactly. No. So the thing is now, even as you correctly pointed out, before they passing a law, how to get the people's how to consult people, how to get their ideas there. So that is the fundamental things in a democracy. So democracy doesn't mean that these 225 people can rule the country being whatever law that they want. Ultimately, they are representing the people. So then what we are fighting for, even in our manifesto, we want to convert it to participatory democracy. Participatory democracy means before passing a law, they get the ideas of the people. At the same time, if there's a policy change now regarding fertilizer policy, who are the people that government should consult? Farmers. Without farmers, how you bring fertilizer policy? How you bring education policy without consulting teachers and students, university students? So we want to convert this to a participatory democracy. That's the number one. Number two is how to bring a new constitution. Now our constitution is there from 1978. 22 occasions it has been amended. Most 90% of the amendments they brought just to satisfy one person or group of people, just to retain their power. Nothing else.
Also accumulate power, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So then we need a new constitution. People's constitution. Even 1978 constitution was not terminated from the people. It's a group of people only drafted that. So we need a new constitution. So inside the parliament, we have to do that. So in a new constitution, we have an idea about what is the framework. First of all, how to expand the participatory democracy and how to expand the fundamental rights. We know the first generation rights only included as fundamental rights. Now the second, third generation rights are there. Civil and apart from civil and political rights, social and economic rights should be included. Right for employment, right for shelter, these kind of, and right for free education, right for free health. These things should be included as fundamental rights. Then only people can get the benefit out of that. And at the same time, third generation right, the environmental right should be included. Then we need a new constitution. So inside the parliament, we want to do these fundamental changes. Then the most important in that new constitution, there must be a solution for national question. Yes. So these are the legal framework. Without changing these things, we can't think about a system change. Right. Now we all were fighting for system change.
Yeah. True system change will come from
exactly.
that.
Exactly. Yeah. Then now people, the layman's perspective, of course, these kind of laws must be there, but to what we are going to eat today, those are the fundamental issues as far as the poor segment of the society is concerned. So we have an idea, because of this social disparity only, this poverty was there everywhere. Now in this area we know how many shanties are here. At the same time we can see high-rise luxury buildings. So as to how change this social disparity, then we need an economic change. So then how to tax rich, at the same time how to bring the ratio of the taxation, the direct tax and indirect tax to 50-50 level. Then how to go to the debt restructuring process, and how to identify odious debt and predatory debt. So these, and how to the general public are concerned, how to reduce taxation. So these immediate measures we should take. So in order to do that, Parliament only having these financial power. So then through Parliament we have to do these changes immediately to satisfy, not only satisfy, to give relief to the marginalized people in the country. So these are the things we are suggesting. The basic thing, lot of things are there. These are the basic things we wanted to do inside the Parliament. If we have been selected, we have to fight for that.
Right. Okay. So Swasthika, so how would you use the mechanism of government and being a parliamentary member to affect change in the areas that are important to you?
I think one of the things which we struggled, quickly answering your question, one of the things which we struggled during the last, since I've been active in politics, is that every time we raise an issue outside, we always struggle to find voices inside to support that struggle.
Right.
Support that struggle, or really fight for us. Not just do it for namesake, but really fight for us and give us information because Parliament is supposed to be a space which is supposed to be transparent to the public. It's not
people's
like
house.
It's a people's house, right? Yeah. So I think all of us are connected to movements. So even yesterday when I was speaking to some of my trade union members, they were like, you're going to go to Parliament and you're going to forget about us. And then I said, if I forget about you, then you bring workers and surround Parliament. Then they said, when we do that, you would bring your security officers and bash us. So, that is what people have.
That's the impression that people have.
That is the impression, that is what the representative has done in the past, for people to actually think that's one. So I think when we say system change and we go in if we do get into Parliament, go in at new phases, we have a huge responsibility to not act in the same way the previous politicians have done. Because if you also act in the same way, if you also just, only go and visit people when there are elections, or, when there is a protest, you bring in police and you bring tear gas and you disperse, if that's how you view people's struggles, then I think people will start losing faith. And it will take a long time to build it up again. So I think one of the things which all of us in the People's Struggle Alliance have is all of us are connected to people's movements, whether it be a struggle against predatory microfinance, whether it be a struggle with the disappeared families of the disappeared, whether it be to repeal the PTA. We're all connected, workers' movements, we're all connected to different struggles. So we have an accountability structure when we get into Parliament. Like we are not going in as atomized individuals. We have created an accountability structure for us, and if we do something to break that trust, then that accountability structure would hold us accountable. Right. So I think we want to have strong voices when there are people's struggles, like what we had during the Aragalaya. When we have people's struggles, we want someone to support us inside Parliament. I think
those causes to be championed inside,
to voice, to raise a strong opposition inside Parliament. And hopefully that would add voice to whatever people are doing outside when the new Parliament comes, because the pressure and the politics is always outside state structures. I always believe this, right? The politics is always with the people. For 5 years, Parliament holds on to that trust. Judiciary holds on to that trust. The executive holds on to that trust. The issue is the people who take on these state structures forget that the actual power is outside. Yeah. And that is what I think Aragalaya reminded us.
Right. The people give them the power.
People give them the power.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think. Yeah.
So, shall I rephrase it slightly differently for you? Because you come from a community that has been marginalized, disadvantaged, like generations. But you've had people from those communities representing that community in there for generations. How would your voice be different to theirs? What would you do differently to the guys who have been representing this community for generations?
Yeah, as first,
you know what I'm getting to.
The power with the people, we call sovereignty. Yeah. The first time we experienced in 2022, people practice their power on the ground. Yeah. So as a team, we believe to promote and sustain the people power on the ground. So first, if a political person or a government, if they care about the people power, I think for me, I believe that the government, the state, the stewards, democracy is very clear. But people scared about the government and the system is not a democratic country. Yeah. So the plantation itself, or the identity is a big issues. You call plantation community. Most of the people call Indian Tamil. Yeah. Most of the people call, Kandurat Tamil. So our identity is still crisis. Yeah. So in 2011 we have 855,000 community. But 2012 is 849. So we're reducing the number of the community because people still scared about to call it Indian Tamil. So by name Indian Tamil, people think that we are from India.
That you're outsiders.
At the same time, in JVP's class, the number of class, they said that the Indian Tamil people are they support India, so we have to take them to India.
Despite this community being here for like multiple generations now.
Yes.
Born here,
And in 1948, the D.S. Ranayaka introduced Citizenship Act. And millions of people lost their citizenship. As I explained, my father. And 1956, the Bandaranaike introduced a language policy. Yeah. So again, the community...
Disenfranchised.
Yes.
Continuous.
Yes. And 1943, the free education, CWD Kannangara said, Indian people not enjoying, we not give free education for Indian Tamil people. So education, citizenship, language. In 1964, the Bandaranaike Srima gives him, agreement. 650,000 people sent back to India. So those are the systemic discrimination. Yeah. But for me, for the last couple of years, as you said, they never questioned of the discrimination did by the state. So I personally, try to challenge and try to accept, acknowledge that the old government did several discrimination against
against an entire community.
Yeah, community
actively did harm.
Yeah. So any government did openly accept that. So other community, they around 56 years they enjoy education. They are a government agent or divisional secretary, so on. But any single person from our community as Pradesh Lekam or division secretary because of the gap. So I'm fighting for the affirmative action. Right. None of the political parties fighting about the affirmative action.
Basic question, listening to what he has to say. Are you saying that the plantation community, the community who work on plantation, let's say, they don't have access to free education and...
Now, after...
When did that change?
1989, they got free education. 1989. 2003, not fully, partly get citizenship. Still, they couldn't get land ownership. Healthcare still, plantation healthcare. They have MBBS doctor.
You dependent on clinics and things like that.
Right? MBBS doctor
treat to a general hospital.
MBBS doctor treat in other hospital, but estate hospital they appoint a medical assistant. Those who pass medical, pharmacy course. Yeah. So the different education system between a state and a state. Right. So within the state, we have two states, estate and state. So the estate administration system is totally different. The superintendent have more power.
Yeah.
And in the Colombo district, close to Avisavella, the Penrith estate, if you want to build a small boutique, only you can put 4 bricks.
Yeah.
Above 4 bricks, they will demolish it. So those kind of discrimination.
No land rights, pretty much like.
So as a person, I fight, first, accept that the state, from independent, they purposely discriminate this community.
Yeah.
And second, affirmative action need to take to equalize people. So now we said equal and equity. And third, I personally fight about the patriarchal system, because I am also did wrong thing for women because of the system, gave power. So the patriarchal system make women undermine and second citizen. Even Nuwan fight about, the identity of Sri Lankan birth certificate. So I fight to put mother's name as a surname.
Yeah.
Because how much they contribute, compare with men and women, we are contribute 1%. Physically, mentally and psychologically. But women contribute a lot, no? Sometimes they contribute their life.
Yeah.
But no any space to put their name as surname, no? But they also put their father's name. But mother contribute a lot, no?
Yeah.
So the power still with us. So we are the decided person. It's came from religion, came from system, culture. So the second thing I have to fight, because as a man, talk with men about men is easier than the women talk with men about men.
Yeah.
So that's
sorry. So I think what you were referring to earlier, like the head of the household is always considered a man. So even when any social protection programs that are there, cash transfers always end up with the men.
Men.
Right. So I think that's where
it's called gender power.
Are, right?
So once we are talking about power devolution with the ethnicity, we need to start power devolution between men and women and other genders.
Right.
We were heterosex. We are control everything heterosex. So other sex people, other sexualities, other minorities. So those are the areas I try to, be a different person to work for community. And also, as Swasthika mentioned, we have to be accountable, no? And the recall, we also fighting about right to recall.
Right to recall. Yeah,
so I have to be accountable for our community.
Yes.
So not Tamil community, as citizen of Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Once every people feel we are equally treated, then only we can build a better Sri Lankan identity.
Right.
Otherwise, it's like Velusamy Sindhu and put each other and say we are Sri Lankan.
Right. I think we could do an entire whole program talking to you, Veera. I think because this is probably an issue that is underrepresented or under discussed. I think people like Ruki. There have been social activists who've been fighting this area. But the people who were representing this community. You wonder what they have been doing up to now, because they have been parts of every government as well.
Generations.
They have been part of every government as well, right?
Yeah, some people, we can't deny, everyone did wrong things. Some people, they already started some intervention. Because of that, at least right now, we got a citizenship education, but we need to do more.
Yeah.
But as you said, people treat us slave continuously.
Also, you have to talk about the tea industry itself. It's the only industry, I think, anywhere in the world that is dependent on subjugating a population for its profitability, right? There's plenty. I was at a tea plantation recently. A friend of mine has taken over, and she was telling me there's plenty in the value chain for everyone, right? But the way the system is set up, nothing trickles down to the workers. Right, everything, there's so much going up the chain to the brokers and things like that, and at the retail end, but there's nothing at the manufacturing end. At the people
that is
who actually
the
work
industry, at the exploitation.
Yeah, exactly.
A different sector, we need to spend hours and days talk about. And the social issue, as recently, one gentleman fight a case again, address,
address, you're right.
Address, Sri Lanka got address about Ceylon tea. But the people, those who are working there, they don't have address.
Yeah, they don't have address.
So,
Yeah.
in Sinhala, say
she told me
address.
some people don't know how old they are. They don't have ID cards, they don't have birth certificates. So I think these are, fundamental things that need
but
to...
now far more change. There are a number of people, like me. Yeah. There are a number of people came from Malayagam, we call Kandurat Tamil. Doctors, engineers, how much they fight, how much they extra effort to get to.
Yeah. I mean, the sense I get is like from all three of you, you bring a unique perspective of being in activism, fighting for causes and for communities that needed that voice, and to bring it into parliament, right? Is that into that body, which is, meant to be the true representative body of the people of this country. That's sort of the idea that I get. Is that right? Is that the kind of...
That's the idea in the sense... I think what we all, I can speak for the other two also, is that when we are contesting, we are just the representation of the struggles. We are just the people who are contesting this election. Like, for instance, when we chose Nuwan Bopege to contest the presidential election, he was the one whom we chose to contest in the election. Yeah. But during the presidential election, he represented all of our politics. Right. So similarly, in parliamentary elections, all of us are, three of us are contesting. And when we go into parliament, it doesn't mean we are some special people going into parliament and we have this special elevated status. We are representing, or we are just the representation of the struggles which are going on, right, which we have stood with, which we have fought with, which we have supported, and we have, been together. So when we go to parliament, we are only a representative of the struggle, and in our heads we would always remember that, and our politics will keep us accountable to that.
Right. So,
and also we collectively, we have policy, we have manifesto. So last couple of months we spend times and hours hours to make, aware about the issues. Right. So Nuwan Bopege very clearly aware towards Malayagam issue, national question, environment. Every individual have clear idea about the issues.
Right.
So it doesn't matter Nuwan or Swasthika or a Veere, but we represent the struggle.
Right. Okay. So we've heard about you guys and your journey and so on. We have some questions from our group. One was that your strategy has been to exit the IMF. I think that's been very clear from the start. Was most others, including the NPP, committed to the IMF program. Please give us your reasons for this and what alternatives would you propose? Maybe Nuwan, Swasthika, if you can address.
Yeah, Swasthika also might assist me. Now, basically, first of all, now IMF came to the scene after the collapse of the economy. What we should take the cognizance of the fact that why we need IMF, whether it's a solution or not. That is a starting point. If it is a solution only, second question arises, why we should exit the IMF. First of all, what we should identify, it's not a solution. We have a debt crisis. So how to manage that debt crisis? Now, if I have borrowed a lot of money from outsiders, then within the family, I have to manage my family to pay that. If I am taking more loans to pay that money, it per se another crisis. So IMF is not another money lending international institution. Now our debt crisis is now around $100 billion. IMF is now willing to give altogether $3 billion.
It's a fraction.
It's a fraction. It's a fact. That is, then that amount also for high interest, around 6.5 interest. So first of all, we have to think whether it's a solution or not. Then our first argument is it's not a solution at all. IMF has nothing to do with this debt crisis. Number one. Number two is, what is the impact of IMF plan, IMF agenda? Now, as a result of the IMF agenda, now the taxation from 8% to they ask us to generate the income from taxation to increase it from 8% to 18%. As a result of that, now people are suffering. because day to day their cost of living is now high. Then in the guise of debt restructuring, they curtail the benefits of the working class. For EFF, ETF,
in fact,
Swasthika will explain
about it.
Swasthika will explain that benefit they reduce. They said it up to 9%, but technically it has reduced to 3%. Then, because other service charges of central bank, when all these are included, in fact, it has been reduced to 3%. Then, what IMF is the another suggestion of IMF, at least in 2028, we have to reduce our debt burden from the GDP up to 95%. Once you reduce to 95%, we have to pay extra 2% for ISB holders, international sovereign bond holders. Then the IMF came to scene, it is very clear, IMF came to scene to protect the international sovereign bond holders. Who are these international sovereign bond holders? They are money lenders. After 2013 only, we as a practice, we started to borrow money from international markets as ISB. Before that, we had only bilateral loans. Then only Rajapaksa government took, even Ranil Wickremesinghe, they took massive, they borrowed money from commercial terms. So as a result of only these crises was arising. So now what the IMF is doing, they are giving security. They gave security to ISB owners. Somehow we are giving security to you to create a situation here, you to recover that amount without having a forensic audit, without identifying what are the odious debt, what are the predated debt. Just now we have to pay that money. That was not the practice that carried out in Argentina or Greece. What they did was they had a forensic audit and they refused to pay odious debt, they refused to pay the other unreasonable debt. At the same time, they demanded haircut, at least 50% haircut. So nothing. So IMF is not proposing anything. There are this IMF, the agenda started from 10 main, they suggested us 10 main things to reduce the state expenses. So as a result of that, the privatization is coming. Everything is connected to that. Then to reduce then they compel us to increase the import. Now they are going to import cars as well. So in a country which is now in a debt crisis, can we encourage the imports? We have to reduce import and we have to increase the production. Import means that multinational companies and others, they create a market in Sri Lanka. So that is the main proposals from IMF. So having taken into consideration all these things, what we are saying, it's not a solution. It's a part of this issue because previously 16 occasions, we went to IMF. We had this kind of agreement of IMF. So nothing has been changed in the society. So with that only we are saying we should exit IMF. Then if it is not a solution, you won't ask that question, nobody will ask question why we should exit. If someone is still thinking that it's a solution, that's why I gave you this, the statistics and other things. It's not a solution at all. So we need our own solution. How to enhance the productivity, how to enhance the export, at the same time how to recover the unpaid taxes, how to reduce certain concessions given to multinational companies, through that how to strengthen the fiscal policy. Once you strengthen the fiscal policy, then you can think about the exchange market. Exchange market is concerned, we need more dollars. To bring more dollars, we have to keep harbors, airport kind of income generating things with the government. So these are the solutions, how to increase the dollar exchange, at the same time how to increase the fiscal policy. So these are our own solutions. What we are suggesting, we should go for this solution. It should be a radical decision.
But in the short term, I think what the IMF did, because we are declared bankrupt, which means we are cut off from international financial instruments of any sort. I think what the IMF did was to give us access to those again, right? So essentially it gives us the ability to borrow more, right? I mean, in practical terms. So the alternative is what? I mean, if we didn't, now if we exit the IMF program, I don't know whether we can even do that. I mean,
we can exit the IMF program because previously also because the conditionalities are so hard to abide by.
Yeah.
That now next year anyway the IMF program is
anyway
it's
one
going
more tranche to come,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's done.
I think the third
tranche.
Yes.
We heard it's been delayed
and then so anyway it's coming to an end. But I think the issue with when we criticize the IMF, people say no, we know the problems. Now what are the alternatives? But the issue is the problems are so bad that, for instance, one person told me that because of the IMF, our the rating agencies have pushed us up, but there is also this nexus between agencies like the IMF and rating agencies to keep us in the system rolling and so on. So let's say in 2028, now even within the IMF, officials are telling us that even if you follow us all our proposals to the dot, the debt restructuring package which we have entered into is definitely going to result in a default or a severe economic issue for us when we start paying the debt in 2028. So then none of what is being proposed is going to be a solution for us. We're anyway going to go into a crisis. So that is what we're saying. At that time, when we have declared bankruptcy, now there is a debate on whether we should have declared bankruptcy at that point or should we have started speaking to other bilateral donors even before. So all of that debate is there. Now it's all water under the bridge. But at this point, are we in a position, that's the question which we're asking out now, are we in a position to exit the conditions of the IMF, which are not going to take us out of crisis? And one of the conditions of the IMF is the debt renegotiation, which we're doing with international creditors. And we literally got nothing out of it. I mean, we literally got nothing out of it, right?
Something was announced right before the elections, I think.
And we are going with that. We are going with that plan without any change. This government is rushing into that. And part of the reason is the IMF conditionalities. We've already made that into law through the Economic Transformation Bill, the Act. So what we are saying is, when we say exit IMF, we're like, oh, you can't exit the IMF, We're not saying exit the IMF. I mean, we know that you can't exit there. We're saying exit the IMF conditionalities simply because, as Bopege was saying, that is not going to get us out of the crisis. And we are not saying that. International economists are saying that. Local economists are saying that. Some of the IMF officials from the IMF who have been in the IMF is having Zoom meetings and telling, this is going to be a disaster for you. So it is based on that we have come up with the political slogan, exit IMF. We're talking about conditionalities, we're talking about alternative financing options. There are alternative options. We are hearing, of course we have to do more research on it and so on. We are hearing that there are alternatives which are coming from credible sources. And the fact that our government the previous government was not looking into those options but going completely with the IMF program tells us that their ideology of how the economy should be and the IMF ideology kind of very much tallied together. Both were neoliberal ideas of the economy, which we are going to see very soon is not in the best interest of the people. In 2028, when we start repaying the debt, already, like even economists who can be called the capitalist economists, who are not socialists, they believe in market economy and so on, even they are saying this is going to be a problem for the country. So then why are we still in a package which is not going to deliver any kind of stability for us? So what we are asking people is to not think of IMF as the savior. IMF has given us a loan, now we have to pay back the loan plus the interest also. But to really critically look at how can we come out of these cycles of crisis permanently? How can we not rely on institutions like the IMF who is coming to our country, who are telling us various things, but we know that's not going to be the solution.
Yeah, I think the fear is that the hard-won gains, like people went through absolute disaster, their lives collapsed and all of that, and now they feel like that at a certain point there's some form of stability, to use that word. Whether it'll upset that. Whether they'll go back into a situation where it's back to the disastrous sort of time they faced before. So I think the challenge for you will be to kind of communicate this to the people in a way that will be sort of easier for them to absorb.
And
right?
to
Because
convince, definitely, for sure.
It's a complicated sort of question, and there's no easy answers, right? In any way, there's no way of coming out of this without growing the economy. We need to grow out of this. I mean, multiple industries, everything. I think Harsha talked about import substitutions and things like that, like closing the economy. I mean, those things are not going to work in the long term. We need to look outwards.
We're not talking about, because I don't think that's viable in today's world. We're not talking about closing the economy. But we are talking about, for instance, as Bopege was saying, about luxury vehicles. Now, if you are a booming economy and, we had plenty of money to import anything we want, then we don't have to prioritize. You can import anything you want. I mean, that's not good in the long run for the environment and all of that.
Sure,
but parking that aside, but we are not a booming economy. We are struggling for essential medicines. That's where we are right now. We are struggling for food. So a government is supposed to prioritize, must ensure basics are met before they look into luxuries. Right. But from the Rajapaksa's time, what has been happening is that the government has been borrowing, and with that, kind of boom which you come after you borrow certain money, you spend in whatever you want.
Right.
And what is funny is, it's not at all funny, but sometimes I think about this. When we go and do campaigns on behalf of microfinance victims, predatory microfinance loans and all, and we go and speak to these financial experts, or even even one of the previous central bank governors, I won't mention names, they say, we should give people financial literacy. People borrow more than they can pay back. People borrow for something and they spend on something else. But that is exactly what our country did.
Well, so the government is not taking the advice that they're giving the people.
Exactly what the government did.
Okay. So we've gone on like well over an hour. You don't mind hanging for a little longer? Another 20 minutes?
You have...
I have another TV program.
You have another TV program?
I had to go to see the sir.
Okay.
Anyway.
No, so
both
we can continue.
Yes,
with that. So a few more questions. Are you contesting in all 25 districts? So how are you contesting in?
20,
So how many districts are there?
22 electoral districts.
Yes.
Electoral districts.
Because there is the one called Mana Muletiu, Kilnutwan Mana Muletiu. Vaunias one district. One
Right.
One electoral district.
It is, So you're contesting all everywhere. Okay. And the goal is what ultimately, like from the election, in terms of your path into the parliament, what is the 200,000 votes, 300? Like, what is the goal? Like, do you think
Our theme is to change the opposition.
Yeah.
So anyway, now what we believe, our movement and our activists are concerned. We are the people. This is the movement. We always build the opposition outside the parliament.
Right.
For instance, this parliament, inside the parliament, when they brought certain, draconian laws, we only fought outside the parliament to representing the people, and we built the real opposition outside.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also kind of saw the people as the opposition, rather than the opposition being the opposition.
We mean the people. And we were in that camp. For instance, when the parliament brought certain acts to privatize the education, people like Wasantha Mudalike, people like Lahiru Weerasingham, they only fought with the students. So they only ultimately reversed all these acts.
Right.
Not the parliament. Yeah. The opposition was in the outside.
Vasant is also contesting under your banner.
District. Yeah. Then this particular parliament was bringing one labour law, abolishing all the other labour law that benefited the workers. And when they reached, in the guise of restructuring, debt restructuring, when they curtailed the benefits of the EPF ETF, people like Swasthika, people like Duminda Nagamu only fought with the workers. They only built the opposition outside. Now what we are asking people, let's build the same opposition inside the parliament as well. That's why we are asking people to vote us. And we are ready not as a practice, our behavior has already been proven that we are eligible, we are suitable to represent you inside the parliament to build the opposition. But we are not just saying now, one can say it's a very pessimist idea. Why you are asking the opposition? But we should be mindful, of course, the opposition, that word per se, it's not only having a very trivial idea.
Yeah.
Once this government is going in a wrong path, if they are unable to accomplish the aspiration of the people, then there must be opposition to take over that.
Yeah.
So what we are saying, we are actually we have that strength. We can do that because even during the Aragalaya, we have shown how to derail the certain things and how to fight and get something out of that. So we have our own alternative plan.
Yeah.
If the government plan now more or less, now even the Ranil Wickremesinghe also come in and say, you are now implementing my policies. When we have cursory glance on their vision and everything, of course, it's very similar to Ranil Wickremesinghe's plan. Then Sajaba, they are also having the same Ranil Wickremesinghe's agenda.
We actually did a comparison. Manifestos through an AI engine, and they said about 80% they all match. Three of them like 80% commonality.
Yes, now
all three. Yeah,
we also studied NPP, Sajaba, and UMP manifesto, more or less similar. So then, if SJB become the opposition, technically, de facto, it's not opposition because they are in the same agenda. Opposition should have an alternative plan. The only alternative plan has been presented by People's Struggle Alliance. Then what we are saying, of course, we have already proved that we can do the duty of the opposition because we are the people who build the opposition outside the parliament. At the same time, People's Struggle Alliance only having an alternative plan, alternative program against the existing system. Now for the moment you are believing in NPP. So I know if there's a failure, there must be an alternative plan. There can't be another similar plan. Yeah. So that alternative plan with us, that's why we are asking people to vote us.
Right. So now it's an alliance of three parties you mentioned, right?
Alliance of three parties and activists whom we knew or got to know during. I mean, they were activists before the Aragalaya also.
Yeah. But FSP is a key constituent of the group.
No,
right now, FSP in the past has been seen as an impediment to certain things like reforming institutions and linked to protests and things like that. How do you get over that go on?
Is FSP
FSP is part of
our understanding is just like JVP is the main constituent party of the NPP. FSP is the main party of the People's Struggle Alliance. Is that correct or not?
Inside the alliance, we all are equal, but we now the role which is played by each party, FSP playing the major role.
Right. Okay.
Right.
You should not forget the NDMLP. I don't think the NDMLP comrades would be happy with that. But it depends on the region, I would say.
Right, of course. Different parties have different strengths depending on where you are. But in terms of getting over perceptions, right? I mean, the way that FSP is characterized, I mean, even during the Aragalaya when people like Vasanta were the tip of the spear in protest, they were getting tear gas and all of that. The narrative that people in politics built was that these guys are always protesting. We can't do any reforms in institutions because they have unionized and they're weaponized those unions to how do you get over that? Because that seems to be like a majority view. Like even when we discuss it within the group, it's like these guys are the protest, like professional protest. You see what I'm saying, right? Yeah. How do you get over that?
First of all, we admit that we all admit the type of leadership that Vasanta gave.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was a real face of the Aragalaya, right?
You could see, and probably that is why the government realized the danger in allowing people like that. That's why he was under the PTA
we were there at every protest against
that. Yes. We had this celebrated his birthday outside there.
That's right. He was there, right? We were all
he also was there.
But while admitting and admiring his, that leadership quality that he had, we have to admit also, especially people in Colombo,
There's that negative connotation to that. So
he's from the FSP, so you should.
But you understand what I'm saying, right? The Colombo middle class, upper middle class have this idea that these guys are like always protesting, they're always like professional protesters. How do you get over?
So since I am also working with the middle class and upper middle class, I know this perception is not correct because you have to go case by case. Now, student community is concerned that as a community, as a force, they believe we have to protect the public education. Then when they bring item and privatizing the medical education, they got together and they fought for that. Then ultimately, who were benefited? After that, we know Wayamba University, they started new medical college. And Rajarata University started new medical college. Then the general public were benefited. What their demand was, all are equal. Whether whether you rich or not, how can you spend for the education should not be the decisive thing to get the access to education. All are equal, whether you are rich or poor. So that's a fundamental. So they fought for that. Then all the other struggles are concerned now, whether the workers' struggles, whether those are very reasonable demands, wages or even the privatization. Against when the government is going to privatize the Sri Lanka Telecom, the demand of the workers, FSP and trade unions like Swasthika's trade union, but we said the profit in the year 2022, even under the economic crisis, around 5,000 million rupees. So why you sell these profitable institutions? But we are asking whether it's an unfair thing. No, all are reasonable, all are justifiable. So if you go one by one, all these protests or struggles, they did not do FSP or other left parties or trade unions. They did not do it as a habit. There is a rational basis behind that. Ultimately, people have benefited out of that. Environmental struggles. All the environmental struggles, ultimately people have benefited out of that. So that is the background of all these struggles. So I think that perception is wrong. When you go case by case, you will feel all these struggles are justified.
Well, I mean, from our perspective, the right to dissent and protest and all of that is enshrined in the Constitution. So I think that's a right. I don't think the government has the right to smash protests with tear gas just because somebody's coming out there. I mean, that's patently unconstitutional, right? I think the president today has been talking about teaching lessons about the Constitution, right? For me, he has forgotten. He's forgotten that former president, that he himself violated the Constitution on multiple occasions. So,
May I just add, not with regards to FSP, but in general perception on protests and so on, it takes a while to get onto the streets. I mean, someone like me, I was not part of left movements or anything, right? But when you start working with different workers and people who have been systematically marginalized and oppressed by the state, what you realize is that the reason why, let's say the upper middle class, I won't even say the middle class because middle class has the upper middle class, it took them the Aragalaya to get onto the streets, and the reason for that is their life has been quite comfortable till they started having long power cuts and fuel shortages. But for the majority of the people in this country, even with power and even with fuel, life is sometimes unbearable. Like when we go for election canvassing, in some houses, even today, people are saying sometimes on a particular day we would survive on tea. And then another person in the house would say, no, those days we used to survive on tea, now we survive on plain tea. So the economy is supposed to be stabilizing, but there are houses which are surviving on tea for a day. So for those houses, when they have a voice, someone like Vasanta, who was leading the Aragalaya, when they have trade unions and political parties who's willing to take up the struggles and lead that protest or struggle, it may be uncomfortable for people who are eating 3 meal per day and who have a saving and who are not relying on the EPF savings, for instance. But it's not the same for everyone. So I think one of the things which I always ask, I mean, it's very to get politicized, it takes a long time. But one of the things which I ask is, I did not become this because I'm inherently good. I have become politicized because of the work I do, because I did work with the legal aid, I worked with political advisors, trade unions, and so on. So one of the things which I ask people who are not, who are busy with, people are busy with their own lives, right? They don't have time to, constantly be thinking of, let's change the country and so on. But one of the things is to see, to not only think about already predetermined biases, but to think if someone is doing a struggle on behalf of education, why are students fighting for clean hostels? Why can't they just pay money and go to private houses? Because they can't afford that, because they come from very, very poor backgrounds. So once you start understanding why people are protesting and so on, I think it becomes easier. I think our biases we also start challenging ourselves, and I think that is where politics starts.
Right, okay.
And also,
Can I?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
We'll finish the discussion with these two.
Yes.
But good luck at what Sira says.
Phase 2.
Good luck.
Phase 2.
Yeah. This is a softball. Okay.
I think there's a group. Wait a minute. Maitri Gunaratna, Taraka Nanakara, and Winston Patirana.
It's an all-male panel, I should say.
SJP, UNF.
Yeah. So a little less friendly than the two of us. not as friendly. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving this opportunity.
All the best.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And we really truly believe that we need voices like yours in Parliament.
Thank you very much. You can continue.
Yeah. The other issues, the power issue. Especially, obviously, women issue. Generally, people say women issue. But, the earlier, the menstrual issue.
Yeah.
How many schools have water? How many schools have toilet facilities? How many families can offer the pad? And how many families have room where the women can change the pad? In plantation, they're only 10 by 10. So they cooking, eating, sleeping, studying, everything.
In that one same space.
So we can talk about women issue providing voucher for pad. But how much people, how many people? So those kind of issues, when people, show their, the problem, people might think, they're fighting, they're violent.
Yeah.
But if we address those issues properly,
then there won't be disaffection.
Yeah.
I think
People
the problem.
don't want to come, and people also want.
No, this is a lot of work. Even for us, to continue to do this is it's a commitment, right? But no, I think maybe part of that issue is that people in certain society can't really imagine that type of a life. Things that they take for granted is just absolutely beyond the wildest imagination of a vast, section of the population. I think that lack of sort of maybe exchange or connection and things like that. I think maybe that was bridged a little bit by the Aragalaya. But I think now people have retreated back to their comfort zones.
Exactly.
And I think you guys are the ones who are keeping that in people's minds, at the forefront of their minds. So switching gears, now we've had the NPP there for, can we look at a couple of their key decisions and things that they have done, and maybe do a little report card from your perspective, and we'll wind it up after that if there are no other questions. So, unfortunately, Nuwan is not there, but the first thing I wanted to ask him was about these cases, the high-profile servant cases that they came up. They said, look, these are going to be prioritized. But obviously, sort of Lasanta's case, Pradeep Eknaligoda and Wasim Tajuddin wasn't there. And those are cases that we have been highlighting right throughout from the beginning. I think even during the Aragalaya, this was highlighted as well. How do you feel about this aspect? Do you feel like, we've seen some high-profile arrests and things like that. Are you optimistic that this is going to lead to something positive for us in terms of accountability?
I think it's good that they have selected cases and said we are going to focus on these cases. So we have a kind of a yardstick to see if they would keep their promise or not. Yeah. But we have to measure the politics by what they do, right? Not what they say.
What they say. Yeah.
And it was very concerning for me, I would say, that when Vijitha Herath came on national TV and said, we want to release the Easter Sunday report, but there are some pages missing. Yeah. I mean, we're not, it's not like this archival book someone has presented and there are like 4 pages missing. So so like, I mean, come on. So even things like that gives us a slight indication that maybe they might be trying to protect some interests and so on. But despite that, once again, we have to give that time for the government. It's a new government. Yeah, they've never been in power before. So maybe it takes them time to get things together. There are certain cases which have gone quite a distance, like Prageet Teknaligoda's case. It's already in court. And I hope those cases can be really expedited because Sandhya has been fighting for a very long time, almost a lone battle. So I hope, because the issue is people have placed a lot of trust in this government. And it's in the interest of all of us that the trust is kept. Because if that trust is broken, then people also lose faith in elections, because even the new people are doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
And the last couple of years, people fight, vote for against war and so on. At this time, people vote for accountability.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if this government failed to prove the accountability, O plus country, O plus people.
Yeah.
So we don't have any slogan
after that. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, we had an actual economic crisis that was born out of a lack of accountability, right? Yeah. Because nobody has ever been held accountable for any of the scams or the murders. So impunity became just the absolute norm.
Yeah.
And with the lack of accountability, like anything's possible, right? Mass scale corruption and so on. So
at least 7 cases we have hope.
Yeah.
And the new government. So we hope they will prove somehow that.
And they have really solid people with their team also to do investigations and so on. So they should.
Well, the only thing we ask is that they keep their word. So on that, we heard a little bit about the PTA and the executive presidency. And also even the Sri Lankan Airlines decision. They feel like sort of walkbacks of their own policy positions. How do you feel about those?
Especially PTA, they also suffer a lot because of the PTA. Yeah. And they openly, publicly announced that they will,
repeal the
PTA.
Right.
But the recent development, they said, there are some good things of the PTA, some bad things. So, like people, if you say drinking is not good. But there are some good, some bad, Those words give me alarm, that they maintain the PTA or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
the PTA, when it was passed in 1979 or 79, I think. When soon after the PTA was passed, there was a report released by the International Commission of Juries comparing the PTA to the apartheid laws of South Africa. So when I heard the NPP saying the problem with the PTA was it was misused, and after we get a government, we will think about repealing the PTA. Yeah. For me, I was like, it is as bad as saying, the problem with the apartheid laws is it was misused. I mean, you can't misuse the apartheid laws, right? Yeah. So the PTA itself is a bad law. Yeah. And so, therefore, that is why people have been pushing for the repeal. The JVP were one of the first victims of the PTA. JVP was one of the targets of the PTA when the PTA was originally passed by J.R. Jayawardener. Yeah. So it's ironic that the NPP comes to power and takes this loophole. And the issue is, even if, let's say, there is a security threat, that also the government has not been transparent with us, but let's say even if there is a security threat, they did not need to have to use the PTA. Yeah. What is the need to use the PTA?
Right now we hear 3 under arrest, right? Under the PTA.
What is the need for
beyond that?
Yes, what is the need for if you put a person in remand with a court order, the police can conduct investigation. You don't need the PTA.
Yeah, PTA basically gives permission to avoid due process.
Avoid due process and to keep a person in continuous detention.
Right. I mean, ICCPR, which is a good law, can be misused. Then imagine a blunt instrument like the PTA in the hands of people of bad faith. I mean, it can be completely destructive. I think that's the point. Even if a good government uses the PTA in a judicious way, it's still the law. And
it's still the law.
We don't know who's going to come next.
Yeah.
You know, so I think as activists, I mean, for us that's non-negotiable. You talked about what are the other laws that you will focus on? PDA, I think
the online
safety bill. But economic transformation bill will be difficult, right? Because that was also IMF mandated, and you know, and things like that. I think that will be difficult to repeal.
It won't be difficult to repeal in the sense ultimately the Parliament decides what. I mean, issue is the IMF conditionalities was not something which was voted in by the people. Like the people didn't say, you know, we want you to make the IMF conditions into law.
Right.
That is something suddenly the government thought of, and the issue with the economic transformation bill is it's not only about the IMF conditionalities. It's also about completely transforming the landscape of Sri Lanka in terms of Veera was talking about what happened when you gave plantation companies complete ownership over a piece of land with people in it. Right. And that is exactly what the economic transformation...
Not only land, with the people.
With the
leasing people to the company.
And that is exactly what the economic transformation bill is proposing for the rest of the country. So that is why we were opposing it, when you read the scheme of the act. And of course the executive presidency, the moment someone gets onto the seat, it's like that. I always think this is like that ring of the Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
You can't just...
I saw President Anandakumara speaking after he was president.
Yes.
Saying, you know, that I can't remember the exact words he used, but listening to that speech, I was like, okay, this is not something urgent for him.
No, he said he will first transform the country and then he will hand over power.
This is what everyone says.
Well, that's what every president says.
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
That's open-ended.
Well, I mean, I sincerely hope, because that's another area that's not non-negotiable as far as like we were concerned. Like, because we know how destructive.
That is precisely what the Aragalaya was all about. We don't want an executive presidency anymore.
Both SJB and NPP both said they will
do it. Yeah. To Nuwan's point earlier about the constitution, we know there's a huge hole in the constitution when somebody who's unelected can become the president. That alone it should be alarm bells that says, okay, we need to get rid of this.
Someone is given that much of power who is unelected.
Unelected.
Experience.
And who took very consequential decisions.
Yes, exactly.
Over 2 years with no mandate, right, essentially. So, anyway, I mean, the transformative election coming up, I mean, we hope that your voices will be part of the new parliament, because I think it's necessary, right? Because I think, you know, the stuff that you fought for at a ground level, like Nuwan said, like you've been fighting for issues, and sometimes the good that you do might not be seen because the media will focus on the protests and the tear gassing, and our media landscape is a problem in this country. Like, maybe you don't get a fair shake because of that. Policy-wise, ideology-wise, I think really it's up to the people. You have never apologized for the fact that you guys are well left of center, right? You know, I mean, all of that. I mean, you believe in,
a left state.
A left state, like, you know, certain amount of socialism and so on. So, with that, what would be your sort of closing argument to the electorate? Who, you know, why should they cast their ballot, you know, for you guys?
Veera, you want to
start from your perspective?
Okay.
Go for it,
So, people voted for a change. When it came to the NPP, people voted for a change. I don't think that was the system change we wanted, but people believed in that. People had a belief and they voted for that. And if we, as one was saying, if we have a parliament with the same old people being in the opposition, the government is going to have a challenge. It's always going to be pulled in the old direction. And the government is already shaking, as we can see. They're going back on their promises and so on. So we need a strong opposition outside parliament, but also inside parliament, if you want to keep that hope alive for a long-term system change. And that is what I think, I mean, irrespective of what the government is doing now, that is what people voted for. So we want to keep that hope alive. And that is why we say change the opposition, vote us to parliament. So I hope people do vote for us and give us seats in parliament so that we can do what we promised to do in the election manifesto. But even if we do not go to parliament, our work continues outside parliament, and that also I wanted to specifically state.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing is, as you said, the number of parliament, they vote for 18, 19, 20, 21.
Everybody. They just raise their hands. They just rubber stamp anything that covers.
Everything is totally different from one to another.
Yeah.
And we want member to at least vote what they for. So we think we are in the land and fighting everywhere. So we fight for justice from wherever, outside the parliament, inside the parliament. So vote for us to fight justice.
Right.
And children, my kids ask, when I said I'm going to contest, they said no, Appa. Because they have mindset, all politicians are corrupt. And they said we can't listen what the politicians talk in the parliament. Openly, sexually, exploit, sexually harass women in the parliament.
Yeah, we've seen.
So we need to, be parliament to respect the word and argument. So we, as a team, we are capable to voice against injustice and voice for justice, voice for, equality wherever. So vote for us to make sure we voice for our community.
Right. Thank you so much. And Chris, anything you want to add?
No, just a thing about, since we're speaking about privatization and things like that, and your views about Sri Lanka Telecom and all that. Now, we had NPP people here speaking about Sri Lankan Airlines, and when they said the government has no business running airlines, and it should be
either sold or closed down.
Yeah, sold or closed down. But now we see that they've done a 180-degree turn from what they said here, and I think on the manifesto also. Anyway, not sure about that.
Strong position on privatization.
Yeah. So now they're going ahead with running the airline. So what would your view be on that?
In the sense.
Okay. Sri Lanka Telecom, we know what your view is.
Yeah.
Right?
So in terms of privatization, what we were saying is the rationale for argument for privatization is that institutions were corrupt. So therefore we have to privatize. So then we looked into institutions which we thought were very essential for us at that time due to resources and all of that. So we looked at telecom and insurance and we had a union base there also. So we were able to study those institutions. And then of course the Ceylon Electricity Board, which we think is an essential element of a country's economy. We did not take Sri Lankan Airlines, we did not study the Sri Lankan Airlines because if, let's say the government is go on a whole spree of privatization and if we want to, we can't struggle, our capacity was limited. So we thought we're not going to focus on Sri Lankan Airlines. Our position is that if we are capable of running it, at one point I think there was this, I'm not an expert on Sri Lankan Airlines because I didn't study the whole institutions and why it failed and so on. But there was a time when I think there was kind of like a state public-private partnership and I'm told, again I have not studied this.
When Emirates had the management of the airline, they had 25% stake and the management control.
And
it was a profitable airline.
We were profit making and then we went and messed it up. So I'm not an expert on this, but if let's say we come to government tomorrow and if that is a possibility, I think we would want to do that because for me personally, Sri Lanka Airlines is also an identity for us, but at the same time it was also loss making. So we need to study why it was loss making. We have studied the CEB and we know why it was loss making, so we could make a concrete argument about it. But in terms of Sri Lankan Airlines, I don't want to answer it. But as a policy, we think privatization is not a solution. There are certain institutions which the government has held on to. Those institutions were corrupted by politicians. So if we want to come out of that crisis, then we have to remove corruption and not essentially sell state institutions, because selling state institution does not resolve the issue of corruption, because there is also corruption in the private sector, which we have raised in previous GGY discussions also. Yeah. So in terms of Sri Lankan Airlines and in terms of technical issues of why it became loss making, we have to study that, and then I would be able to answer this question.
Yeah, well, I mean, the issue when a state institution makes losses is that the taxpayer pay for it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's where the issue is. Harsh's argument was that if the airline no longer is there, the market will step in. So there's no loss to the country in terms of, yes, the identity will be lost. That we won't have a national airline.
I think at one point when they were discussing selling Sri Lankan Airlines, there was also a strong counter argument against it. I mean, on media, which I saw some news reports, but again, I'm not an expert on it. So I can't quite recall. Yes.
Yeah.
Because when they were discussing about selling Sri Lankan Airlines, there was a strong counter argument against it coming from the mainstream media. Okay. So I off my head, I can't recall it.
NPP says for tourism purposes. Right.
Okay.
Right.
But as a policy, we have taken a policy against privatization as PSA. So
across the board?
Across the board.
Because there are a lot of loss-making, they can't, I mean, there are a lot of institutions which you can't even classify. You know, they can't, and they haven't published annual reports, there's no, I mean, under ministries, there's no one way of looking at this whole thing. I think it's a mess. Who did we talk to about this? Was it Malathi night?
I wasn't there.
You were not there.
The reason why we said we are against privatization is to counter the argument that if a business entity is with the state, it automatically becomes loss-making is an argument we don't agree with.
Okay.
So it is on that rationale that we have said that we are against privatization, and the way privatization was being carried out also under pressure, that also we were not in agreement with.
Right, okay. All right, so shall we wind up with that? So thank you so much,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Veera. It was very nice to see you both, and Nuwan as well. And
it's nice being here again.
And we wish you all the very best. Maybe Marisa will join us next time.
Hopefully.
This first time, but
the power behind the people's struggle.
Bopege's first time.
Yeah.
Bopege's first time.
Okay.
Yeah. So usually we read a quote. Lisha has found a quote that says, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." And I think a lot of grassroots work that you've done really shaping those minds, right? So I think the reason we are receptive to change right now is because a lot of work went in by a lot of activists to get people to kind of, change their perceptions of change. The fact that we can actually make change, the fact that we have power. Right? A lot of people felt like we didn't have the power to change, despite us electing people into that body that makes decisions on our behalf. I think people have seen
with
that
the Aragalaya, I think
change
that has completely, with the Aragalaya, I think that completely changed.
Changed that, yeah. I mean, I suppose the laws that was brought in by this parliament, you can say it was a direct result of the Aragalaya, like the rehabilitation bill and all the other laws. Is like a rocket to the heart of activism, right?
Yes.
Like to try to, but new day.
They aimed at countering the Aragalaya, like from the time they came, they were like paranoid about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People have hope, and especially young people, this time they intervene in the politics because those days the family those are money, but the young people intervene in the politics. That's also one of the positive outcome of the Aragalaya.
Absolutely, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much
for the election to come.
Thank you very much.
And we at least hope, nationally you get an aggregate total that will at least put one or two of you into that place, because I think your voices are important to the discussion that the country is having right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the very best. Shall we wind up then? Anything else you want to add to that, Chris? No? Okay, good. So that's a wrap from day 315. We have other guests that we have lined up, but it's very difficult because everybody has sort of plans and they're campaigning and all of that. So let's see who we manage to get on board. But that's a wrap from day 315. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
And Chris and the gang will be at the street corner again on Sunday, the next 2 Sundays, reminding people about who to vote for, who not to vote for. I think voting by elimination, right? Don't send corrupt people.
We remind this government of their promises.
Promises as well.
So a few of them which they're breaking.
Right. Yeah. So if you're in the area, please do join us. And with that, that's a wrap. Thank you guys. Thanks everyone. Good night. you.